Father, mother, sister, brother, uncle, auntie. Every time say me.
Hi everyone, Kieran here again. Welcome back to our episode of Coffee Tea Money Talk. Today we have Lenin over here and Venessa again. We'll be talking about something a little bit more related to what Venessa is always doing on a day-to-day basis on how and what are the implications of asset distribution. Vanessa, so I think the first question that we have, right, from the last episode that we talked about, right, we talked about, writing will and things like that. We want to know, based on whatever that, you have advised clients about, right, what are some of the issues on distributing on the most common assets that we have? Let's say property. We can start off with properties. I know Lenin has quite a fair bit of them.
Every time say me.
So we want to know a little bit, maybe what are some of the issues that people might face when they are distributing their properties, and what are the questions that they always face when writing a will?
I think for property owners, the most important thing to actually identify is what is the kind of ownership. So there are three kinds, right? Sole, joint, and then tenancy in common. We first have to identify this, then we can decide whether this property can be willed away in the will.
So, but then you say three types, so the three types, when you break it down, right? They also, so is easy, so straight away you give it to him.
Yeah.
Then the joint and then the common tenancy. What happens?
Are some of the challenges between the other two?
So for joint tenancy, let's say you have two or more owners, technically you can't will your share away, because if you're no longer around, your share automatically goes to the remaining owners. It's called the law of survivorship. So they automatically sort of like take over.
Belongs to my wife or my spouse.
Yes, correct. So you can't include it in the will. It's not like a 50-50 kind of division.
Oh.
Yeah, and joint tenancy is the most common.
They are making mistake to put the property inside the will already, right? Because there's always someone surviving.
So if we see like a joint property, we usually ask clients like, what is the manner of ownership? If it's joint property, you can't will your share away.
Then, problem.
So it's something to consider, because a lot of couples in Singapore, they actually hold their property jointly.
Common, I mean, definitely.
I think that's one of the most common way of owning a property, right?
Most of the time, yeah. The other one would be tenancy in common, where you own a specific percentage of the share. For that, then you can include it inside your will.
Oh, okay. Then is there any difference between owning a HDB, private, condo?
So, for example, if you have a HDB, of course we know with HDB there are more rules involved. Like maybe like a foreigner, you're not allowed to. You can inherit it, but you also have to sell it off. So you cannot keep a HDB.
Okay.
Whereas for landed, it's not so much of an issue. Then also you have to consider things like whether if you already have an existing property. For HDB, you either have to live inside the HDB or you have to dispose of it as well. So you can't keep like multiple HDBs.
So Vanessa, just check. So let's say if I already existing have a private property, can I inherit a private property in that sense?
Yes, you can.
Would I incur any ABSD in the future, or if?
So for inherited properties, there will not be ABSD charged. However, if you choose to, let's say, buy the third property, then there would be ABSD on that, but not on inherited property.
So based on two units that I own now?
Yes, that's right. Yep.
Oh, okay lah, it's free.
So it's a rich man problem.
It's a rich man problem, in that sense lah. So I think next common assets that most people might have is, let's say they do a lot of investments and it comes to stocks. Will there be any issues pertaining to stocks?
So for stocks and shares, usually we would indicate the brokerage account, and then all the various stocks inside to be willed to whichever beneficiary. But especially when it comes to overseas assets, overseas stocks and shares, there's something to consider, because in other countries, for example America, there are things like inheritance tax, estate duties. So that's also a point of consideration that we usually highlight to our clients as well.
Okay. So you're saying what? They buy US stocks and then they were subject to US tax.
Yes, depending on the different jurisdictions, there might be estate duties involved. So when it comes to overseas assets, usually what we tell clients is if you have substantial overseas assets, always remember to consult an estate planning lawyer in that particular jurisdiction. Because it's not just a country, like for example, America. Even different jurisdictions, they have different rules on estate duties.
No, as a Singaporean, I'm saying that.
Yeah, even as a foreigner.
I own US shares.
Through Singapore brokerage account.
Through Singapore. And I still subject to the US.
That's your biggest concern.
No. I mean, I'm saying that. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's concerned lah. I
Has
mean, a lot
some
of
fair
people,
shares in
those US
stocks.
stocks. Yeah. So would it still be taxable?
Because you mentioned about foreign assets, so these are considered foreign assets.
Yeah. So if it is a Singapore brokerage account, and it depends on when, where you purchase it. But if it's through a Singapore brokerage account, then we don't have to worry about it.
Or even if it's US shares.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So we are still okay for now lah. So if I want to actually let my beneficiaries continue to own the stocks if I'm not around, would that be possible to do so? Because I feel that maybe the company I bought at a very, very low price, and in any event that I pass on maybe next year or whatever, right? But I think the runway of this company do have some huge potential, right? Are they still able to hold on to that stocks, or they are forced to sell away? Is there a way to
so they
make
can
sure
they can choose whether they want to liquidate the investments or whether they want to choose to hold on to it. So both are fine.
So meaning to say that using me as an example, I should be the one indicating in the will, is it?
Yeah, that's right. So our clients would often specify their intention, whether they want their family members to hold on to these assets, liquidate it at a later time, a certain price, or they can liquidate it anytime they want to.
Oh, so all these can be actually stated in the will, and you'll encourage clients to do so rather than to just I give 50% to my kids.
So for some clients, they prefer to give their beneficiaries flexibility. Because either because their beneficiaries are already of age, or they feel that their beneficiaries are able to handle, are financially savvy. But for some, especially when there are minor children involved, then maybe they want to state more clearer and distinct instructions.
Quite interesting.
Yeah, good to know. I always thought that US shares is taxable, but now with local brokerage, we buy it's not taxable, but more of looking at the will and how they want to distribute these US stocks. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
So not of your concern because
Yeah,
we know that Lenins do hold quite a fair bit in technology,
lah.
and
Kieran also quite a lot.
the runway of technology companies actually boom at a later date.
I think most people hold technology shares and stocks.
Yeah lah. Judging from the laptop I use. Yeah, so I think the next thing that we have in mind is more on like joint ownership account. Joint account. Would there be any potential issues, or should we just indicate in the will for that kind of account?
Okay, so for joint bank accounts, it can actually be a little bit tricky sometimes.
Okay.
Some people, they leave it completely out of their will because there is a very clear instruction with the other account owner how they want these monies to be used. But you can also include it inside your will. We don't really advise clients to do that because sometimes for joint bank accounts, right, it might cause complications. So when this comes before the courts, when you apply for your grant of probate, then you might actually be in contention with the other joint account owner.
At the point of death, wouldn't the joint account be frozen?
Not necessarily, unless the bank is aware that one of the owner has passed on.
Is there like a system that all these government bodies actually know if someone passes away?
Yeah, so actually, Singapore is a small country,
yes,
right?
Correct.
So
they always say the system is always linked up.
This is somewhat
true. Okay,
yeah, especially many times our mortgages, our loans are also taken with certain banks. In order to actually liquidate or have access to the accounts, you have to provide the death cert, grant of probate, etc. That's when the bank will be notified already. So the other assets in the bank will naturally also be triggered.
So the other question I have for you is something that concerns everybody lah, not every time me, okay? It's about CPF nomination. So
what's the best way, or what is the recommended way to distribute CPF? Because I mean, we work so hard. Every time we contribute money to CPF, right? What would the best way to actually distribute the money in CPF?
So CPF is actually not covered under the will.
Not covered under the will.
Yes, correct. So CPF nomination is another category on its own. You have to do a nomination through your SingPass account. And it's very simple actually. You just log in and then you state who your intended beneficiaries are. And yeah, the CPF assets will be ring-fenced. It will not, so if you have a will, even if you include your CPF account inside, it will be void and invalid.
So most importantly, a person has to make nomination to the CPF itself.
Yes, correct.
So what if he doesn't make any nomination?
Where the money goes to?
Yeah.
The government
It
or?
will maybe because
Okay.
it follows the Intestate Succession Act to your parents, your spouse, your children, grandparents, siblings, relatives, etc.
Okay.
If there are no identifiable relatives, then yes, it goes to the Singapore government.
Okay.
That's how many layers after that?
The ninth
ninth
layer. Yes.
Yeah, father, mother, sister, brother, uncle, auntie. Yeah.
So if you want to contribute to the nation building fund, you can choose to do so.
Okay.
Kieran, you earn a lot. Remember to do something about it.
So this one is quite important. And you will not be covered by a will, like what you say.
No, it wouldn't.
Okay.
Okay.
And the other portion, I think the most question that I always hear from my clients is that if does insurance policy, right, would it be actually best to be nominated or actually be willed through a will writing kind of a way, which is actually recommended?
I think to me, both are fine. Whether you choose to do a nomination or whether you choose to include it inside your will. But one thing for sure is to remain consistent. So not to have a nomination and then subsequently in your will also indicate instructions that contradicts.
So then which come first? So they will follow the insurance nomination or the will instruction?
I think the latest one, they will follow which is the most updated one. So let's say you have a nomination, an insurance nomination. Subsequently, you indicate inside your will a different set of instructions also. We will look at the will, but different insurers also have different SOPs, different protocol. And also another thing to take note is if your nominated beneficiaries have already approached the insurer to take out this sum of money, then it might also be complicated.
So what is the best advice? I hear a lot.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's a lot of scenarios. So what would be actually the best scenario? Because I think normally when people actually do nomination, they probably would actually forgotten when they exactly have done it.
I think consistency to ensure that your if you have done nominations, review it to make sure that it's correct, and then don't include it inside your will. But let's say you want to include it inside your will, then revoke your nominations.
So the best way, like what you mentioned, is to separate
Yes,
both.
correct. To not have contradicting instructions.
Okay,
Yeah.
makes sense.
So out of so many assets, we talk about property, joint account, what else? CPF nomination, insurance. So is there something that you can give our audience advice on? I heard that there's this insurance 150. What is exactly this thing?
Okay, so it's the Insurance Act, Section 150. This is a clause that we can put inside. It allows us to put a clause inside the will to enable our executors to go to the insurer to collect from a life policy up to 150,000. So this helps the executor to pay off any estate expenses.
Which includes any liabilities, debts that has to be cleared off.
Or things like legal expenses as well, because there might be a caveat lodged if all these liabilities are not being paid off, and the grant of probate will not be issued. So all the remaining debts and liabilities still have to be paid off before a grant of probate will be issued to your executors and your family members.
So if they don't have the grant of probate, then what happened to the estate?
They can't access any of the bank accounts or any of the.
So whatever that we mentioned earlier on, the property.
Yeah, you need it's like a ticket basically. Yeah.
So
ticket to get your golden vote.
So
Something
basically,
like that,
whatever that
yeah.
you actually own to your debtors, you actually need to pay off first before you get access to all this.
That's right.
So this insurance section 150 is very, very important to be in place lah, to say.
Yeah, because it enables the executors to collect a sum of money that allows them to pay off all the necessary expenses. But of course, if your executors are willing to, they can come out of their own pocket to pay off all these things. That is fine as well, but usually that's quite unlikely lah.
Can we do more than 150?
Yeah, you can indicate more than one policy because per policy, you're allowed to withdraw up to 150,000. So for clients whom they envision that they have quite a bit of liabilities, they can indicate 2 or more policies inside.
From the same company or is different company? Or it's just based on per policies?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Okay. Not bad.
something to take note of. If not, then I have to find which executor lah. Correct, and must be willing to help me pay off my debt lah, in a sense, before they can access my assets.
Yeah, you can appoint Lenin.
I do my best.
So I think just now when we were actually having some discussion about how we should actually run this podcast, right? I think one thing that actually came up to our discussion is that you mentioned something very interesting. Marriage does revoke will, right?
Yeah, so this is actually something very unique in the Singapore legal system.
Only Singapore.
I'm not too sure about other countries.
But
Why you're so concerned? You're
just curious,
why you worried?
just curious
Okay,
in case,
okay.
yeah.
Alright.
So back to this portion. So you're saying.
So in the context of Singapore, right, if you have drafted a will, for example, now you draft a will, and then subsequently
He got married.
Yeah, your will no longer be valid.
And can I state that I want it to be valid after my marriage?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
It's called the marriage contemplation clause. If you have a partner in mind, you know that you're going to get married soon, usually we would include such a clause for our clients so that the will remains valid.
But if I don't have a partner?
Well, then we wouldn't draft such a marriage contemplation clause. What we would advise you is to come back and then amend your will again.
Once you get married.
Once you get married, correct.
Then divorce?
So the irony is that...
Just curious, ma.
the irony here is that in the event of a divorce, your will is not revoked.
So you're saying in the event of your divorce?
Yeah, the will still remain valid.
Oh.
So it's opposite.
Yeah, it is.
In a sense, right?
So cannot go and review again?
You can review again, which is what we advise people to do. You definitely should. If there are any major milestones changes.
You probably don't want to give your ex-spouse lah.
I don't know.
Makes sense, right? Most likely
She will contest with you, I tell you.
Yes, it's very unlikely.
It's very unlikely you want
Then if he marry again?
With each marriage.
Or with each marriage?
Yeah, every subsequent marriage, the will be revoked.
Oh.
CPF nomination, would it be revoked as well or no?
So for CPF nominations, it will also be revoked, but for LPA, it wouldn't.
Okay.
Okay.
That's quite a fair bit to So to summarize, CPF nomination will be revoked by
If you get married.
If you get married, yes.
Okay, something new.
So divorce, it doesn't get revoked.
CPF nominations, no, it doesn't get revoked.
But if you get married again, it get revoked again.
Yes, for wills, yes.
So, and you mentioned for LPA, no, you will not be revoked even if you get married and divorced.
Yes, if you get divorced, the appointment will be revoked of your donees if you appointed your spouse.
Oh.
Yeah, if you had appointed your spouse. But if you have appointed someone else, then it doesn't matter.
Then it doesn't matter. Okay.
Wow.
Well, that's something new that we learned
that's
today.
good, that's good.
But for the insurance nomination, no, right? In terms of marriage and divorce. Since we are in this topic.
Actually, insurance nomination, I'm not sure.
Good question. I guess we got to
This one
go
we're
and
gonna
check,
find
check,
out and
check
find out.
Yeah. We probably have to check out on
You
this
got a lot
one.
of insurance policy, is it?
Just curious lah. Yeah. So to summarize, I guess is more on the will portion and the CPF nomination that will be revoked during new marriage. Correct.
Yes, during a
And
marriage.
LPA will not be affected unless your donee is your
spouse.
Ex-spouse.
Ex-spouse.
Yeah, Lenin, you were saying, sorry?
No, I'm just saying that it's good that you asked this about this marriage and divorce question regarding will.
Because I think it's getting very common that we heard, friends, very close relatives that they encounter unhappiness and they decided things are not going as well as what they thought, and they decided to part their way lah. And I think this is one important part that you mentioned, especially you will not be revoked, and most of the time you might not want to give to your ex-partner.
So actually, since you are here, I want to ask you, in your line of work, actually, what is any interesting story that has happened?
I think there is unfortunately, a lot of the situations that we come across are not so positive. The memorable ones, at least. There was a particular client. He actually called us. He wanted to draft a will very urgently. It was his father, actually. The father was terminally ill. So we informed him of the many different considerations that they have to decide on. The executors, the percentage of distribution, doing up your CPF, etc. His father was in a last stage terminally ill, cancer. And he took a while to come back to us with the instructions, because I think they couldn't decide as well.
Okay.
And there was one night, I think it was about like 9-10, I got an urgent call from the son, who gave me a series of instructions, and he said, my father has decided, can we draft these instructions now, and then can we come down to the hospital to sign? And well, that's not advisable usually, to do things up in such a haste, but we drafted, and as we were ready to go down to the hospital, we received another call that the father had actually passed on.
Oh,
ouch.
So in this kind of scenario, will this drafted will be valid in any way?
Definitely not, because it hasn't been signed. For us to sign off a will, we need to ascertain that the client has mental capacity. He knows what he's signing off.
So meaning to say that even if you are actually rich in time, he might not be in the right state of mind to actually sign off.
Yes, we would have to speak to the client. If if he understands what we are saying, if he can respond, then yes, we would be comfortable to sign it off. We would also probably get a doctor to ascertain he has mental capacity.
Okay.
But in this case, I think what was very sad for us was the fact that, the father already somewhat knew what his instructions were, but he was just going back and forth, changing his mind a little bit. And towards the end, he didn't make it in time, to sign off the will.
And is it the first time that the client wants to do the will for the dad, or?
Well, in this situation, we know the family quite well, so we know that the father's intentions are generally his intentions are to split amongst children. His children is just which asset goes to whom. What is a better arrangement? Yeah, so it's not so much about the conflict part, but it is about the part where, towards the end, the final stages of his life, this is something that's still on his mind.
Okay.
So I think that's something that we want to try to avoid. You don't want to be thinking about these things, unfortunately, even
Just
on
curious,
your deathbed.
So the moment the son called you until the first call and the second call, what was the time difference?
Period that they decided on all
As in the first time when they informed us they wanted to draft a will, probably about 2 months.
Two months.
So it was quite a long period, but there was just, I think they knew that it was urgent, but there were also many other things to think about.
To consider.
So he was never really in a right frame of mind, because we need your beneficiaries' information also. Yeah, and I think they took a while to obtain that information for us. Yeah, and so busy with medical treatments as well. They just didn't have time to tend to this, but in his final moments, this was still something that he wanted to look into.
I see. Any pleasant moment or not so?
I think there was.
I mean, share with us one pleasant, happy moment lah.
I think there was a very interesting appointment where a family of sisters came down. They were actually very, very excited to do their will. They see it as like a very major milestone, memorable moment. So after we did the will, they took a lot of selfies, yes, and they actually went for a celebration.
Yeah, okay.
So they were super excited. They were in their, I think, 60s. 60s, 70s, and they were about to travel together. So that was something that they wanted to have settled before they, they go on their trips. Yeah, so I think I like their outlook. It was like a very positive session.
Good.
Yeah.
Not bad. Selfies some more. Yeah.
Yeah, and they posted on Instagram, so they were very
They have
excited about
Instagram?
it. They do, yes.
Why, 60 years old can have Instagram? Yo.
Normally people in the 60s use Facebook more.
No lah. TikTok also can.
TikTok also
I will
can.
send them this particular.
Okay, like, at least your work journey is not only filled with negative experience, but also memorable one like this as well.
Yeah.
That is a lot more fulfilling and a lot
Yeah.
more sense of satisfaction as well for your
Yeah.
own work.
I think our estate planners, they get a huge sense of satisfaction from planning for their clients, knowing that the clients now have a peace of mind, family members are in a harmonious situation, even in the event that emergency or unexpected situations occur.
Yep.
So normally, how long does this whole planning takes if everything goes very smoothly?
I would say it depends on the client and their family situations, how complex it is, how decisive the client is. I think that's also a very important.
True. 2 months.
Take note.
Chop. Make it 2 weeks.
So it can be done very fast in a few appointments, or some clients they take a long time to
So the
appoint.
shortest one that you encounter is roughly about
Perhaps within a month.
within a month. They settle
yeah.
everything.
Okay.
Yes.
And the longest,
As
long as.
well, probably till now it's not completed.
And how long is that time?
The first till now.
It's been years.
Wow.
So I think it's really something that if you really set out to do, we
Yeah.
really need to spend time to decide and be decisive on it. Having
Yes.
something is better than nothing, right?
Having a comprehensive estate plan, yeah, that's important.
Okay.
True. Makes sense.
Makes sense. So Kieran, any last question?
No, for me, I think Venessa mentioned something very interesting about the marriage and the divorce part. I think that's my biggest takeaway.
Don't worry.
What's your biggest takeaway? What's your biggest takeaway?
My biggest takeaway, I mean, I have to do a will, definitely.
yeah,
Right? I
have
three
not
kids.
done again.
Yeah, not done again. Yeah.
I think something that you can.
You and I must do lah.
Yeah, we must do all
Yep,
together.
yep.
Yeah,
Correct.
But I have to do again after I get married.
Yeah,
again.
you remember?
So I think with this, we are very happy to have Venessa over here to share with us more about estate planning in this session. And then with this, let us know if you have any questions again. We'll be glad to invite her again here to share with us more about her stories and some of the exciting things about estate planning as well. Do DM us, give a like, share, and subscribe. Just
Bye.